It is 23 minutes after 8 o'clock, and joining us in studio this morning for his monthly visit, your local New York Life agent, Damon Graham, with us. Morning, Damon.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Doing well. How's the summer going for you and your family?
Crazy busy.
Yeah.
I mean, without a doubt, but it's all good stuff.
It is. And especially coming out of COVID now, our your downtimes can tend to get busier than your quote not down times.
Yeah.
It's like I gotta get back to work just to get some time to rest.
Pretty much. I mean, the last time I was on, we were right in the middle of graduations and end of school year, and
Sure.
It just was a crazy mess, and it hasn't really let up.
Yeah. Probably won't till probably for a while here, till we kind of settle really into a normal again, and people aren't so much worrying about, all right, can I go here? Can I not go here? Do I got to wear a mask here? And once we kind of get past that and we just start, oh yeah, I got to get here, I'm going to do that, and you don't think about the 27 other things that make you think about now just to go get a loaf of bread or whatever it is.
Right.
But we'll see.
Not as many hoops, but still, it's always in the back of your mind.
Mm-hmm. We were talking mask, and then we'll move on real quick. I did get a chance when I was in Tucson. We went to like one of these outlet areas to shop around in a little bit, and most were fine, but there was one or two stores they would not let you in unless you had a mask.
Really? Still, it's in Arizona still?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like one of the outlet. You know how they have those little outlet, and I'm just making an observation. Y'all take whatever you want out of this. Those businesses that were doing that. There weren't a lot of customers in there. Just saying.
Right.
There were a lot of customers in the other places where they were making people. Generally speaking, it was the employees and maybe one person.
Right. And unfortunately, I believe most of those mandates come down from the national level, just like we were talking about the national parks.
Sure.
And federal buildings and those things are still under mandate.
Yeah.
And they don't have a choice. If they're going to operate under the premise of that big corporate umbrella, they have to follow those rules. And right now, I agree with you. It's killing them.
It's got, I mean, I'm just making the observation. Like, people are choosing to go shop elsewhere, and that's their right to do that. And so act accordingly, but I'm just making observations.
Sure. No, I agree.
For folks that aren't familiar with our conversations with Damon, he joins us once a month. And obviously, when we talk finances and things like that, you can't get specifics because you talk to two different people and their stories are completely different on their financial needs or goals or any of that combination. But we talk in generalities. We always and I don't care what your goals are. There are certain things that that everyone has to do to get in those directions. I mean, we have to. I don't care what your goal is. You have to have some fiscal responsibility to get there. If you're and that's. But that's where the beauty of this is different. The people's end games and goals aren't the same. Some people that no, I want to have a big Scrooge McDuck pile of money vault waiting for me when I die to distribute to my family. Others are like, I ain't got no family. I'm just trying to make it through the rest of my life here. Or, people's end games are different, and you give different advice and different directions to go in based on those decisions. So we can't really tell you that.
But one of the commonalities and kind of a visual that you can think about is no matter what your situation is, you think of it like building a house. You can't start with the roof. You have to start with a foundational piece.
Sure.
And if you build on sandy soil, your house is going to crumble. So you have to start off with a solid foundation. And generally speaking, for most people, that's making sure that you've got your emergency fund, because, if especially coming out of COVID, a lot of people had to lean on their emergency fund for several months until things started materializing, whether it was unemployment or, making sure that their job was going to be there.
Sure.
Or having to take time off, 2 weeks to quarantine. I ran into a lot of people. I sell supplemental insurance as well, and disability comes into play when you're quarantined for COVID. That 2 weeks, depending on the carrier, can fall under a disability claim.
Interesting.
Which most people, they either had to take vacation, sick leave, whatever. Well, just making sure that your financial and your foundation pieces are in place. Your emergency fund is there, and depending upon whether it's 2 months, 1 month, 6 months, a year,
Sure.
you've got something that gives you that peace of mind to say, I know that if my income or my spouse's income or whoever is interrupted, we still have this little piece over here to keep us going.
Absolutely.
And then you build from there.
Absolutely. I mean, we could. I would say now is as good as time as any here. We're getting to where we're told here at July 1 that the state's going to be fully opened, and we're starting to come out of COVID here. Now's the time for the lessons learned portion of this last year and a half here, and we talk about that globally and as a country and things. Well, you should do the same thing as a family. Yeah. Like you said, you're talking about people relying into emergency funds. I imagine there's a lot of people that learned in this COVID, I have an emergency fund, but I don't have enough. I don't have enough. Or what? I should have done this, and so now that we're starting to come out of this, let's get prepared for the next time something like this will happen. Right. I'm not saying COVID's going to happen again, but something will happen. It's life. It's reciprocal. Everything's, there's going to be things that happen globally that will impact you individually as a family, and COVID is a very much a huge reminder of that right now.
Exactly.
And I say, okay, let's take that time. You make an appointment with Damon or I'll be honest, whoever you trust on this kind of stuff, I say you got a pretty good shot here with Damon here. He's a pretty bright man. But what I'm saying is, if you're not thinking about this, you're setting yourself up to fail again the next time if you're not doing this. You've got to take these lessons, say, okay, I didn't do so well in this. How do I mitigate this? And everyone can do this. I don't care if you're the new couple starting out or, new in life, or if you're a little bit more seasoned and you've gone and been through a job or two and looking to, maybe already got the family going and all that. Either way, it's never a bad time to start planning and versus no planning.
Exactly. Think about the analogy. You don't go camping and just show up at the campsite with absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
I mean, you're going to be sleeping on the ground with nothing, and you're not going to be able. I mean, you can't fend for yourself. So the planning mechanisms have to be put in place.
Sure.
And starting from the ground up, making sure that your emergency fund is in place, making sure your life insurance is in place, and that need covers a broad spectrum. I mean, everything from just final needs to covering the funeral, all the way to legacy to kids and grandkids and everything in between, income replacement.
Sure.
All of those different things. And if you don't address those before you need them, you're not going to have them.
Sure. And you got to remember, too, it's a marathon and not a sprint. You can't. You don't want to walk into today and just be like, all right, I want the whole kit and caboodle right now. It's you build this process gradually, because obviously, especially new folks starting out there, like, I don't even know if I got enough to get groceries for the week here. I'm trying to make that little magic happen here. And you're like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to say put money aside for something. And it's all done gradually. Okay. Yeah. Obviously, we're not asking you to bank thousands of dollars in the first, but you know what? Maybe if you're making $50 a week, all right, can we somehow put 5 of that somewhere or 10 of that somewhere? We start there, and then we work from there.
You got to eat an elephant, and the only way to do that is one bite at a time.
Yeah.
So starting that process, and I expect that the majority, again, and this happened several years back, but the majority of my first time appointments are going to be budgeting, because a lot of people realized during the pandemic that they didn't have a budget in place that was sustainable. But then again, a lot of us figured out that, oh, hey, if we can't go to the movie, we can't go to Albuquerque every other weekend, we can't do this. We've got a lot of excess, income.
It's true. It wasn't places to spend that disposable income, and you start stacking up a little bit.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons that the stock market stayed strong through the entirety of the pandemic, which most people looking at it going, this doesn't make any sense. There's no good information in the system. Why is the market staying high? Well, one of the supporting mechanisms was our savings rate, because those that did have some planning in place, when they got their stimulus check, they sat on it and they went, you know what? I don't know what next month is going to bring.
I'm going to stash this away.
I'm going to stash it, and I'm going to sit on it. And then as things started developing and they could see where things were going, they said, hey, I've got a little extra.
Yeah.
I can start that IRA. I can start that life insurance policy. I can do something with it, and still be conservative enough to have enough in my pocket that if the pandemic gets worse, I'm still okay.
Sure. And, just, peeling back my own personal curtain a little bit, we got those checks like everybody else did. And we were, we did some of that ourselves. We're like, well, we're not going to spend it on anything. So some of it we squirreled away. Some of it we paid down some of our debt with. And,
Exactly.
I was like, all right, well, we got a couple grand on this card. Let's put that down, let's work that down. So,
and it's not, that is certainly, paying down debt in that scenario was not a bad idea for some.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at it going, okay, now because of the level of governmental spending, we are, and most people see it in the news, we're facing inflation.
Yeah.
And, you can hide under a rock or whatever, but inflation's there. And if you notice your prices, not only on metal, lumber, building materials, your plate of food at your even all the way down to your food truck has increased $2.
Sure.
Well, that's because they're having trouble getting supply in.
Yeah, it's all about supply and demand.
Exactly.
And demand right now is way higher than supply. And so they call the shots.
Exactly. And it's a perpetual circle because we had the extra funding. So everybody got to a point where they were spending a little bit more. Well, that buying created a deficit on the supply side, increased demand, decreased supply, prices going up, inflation going up, and they haven't raised the interest rates to counteract that process to keep inflation down.
Sure. And on, in the simpler thing, there was no production being done on the other side. So there was no replacing the
supply,
which increased the demand and decreased the supply. And it, and when you look at it that way, it doesn't take a PhD to figure out this ain't going to work,
No, but unfortunately the majority of our politicians have forgotten Econ 101.
Sure. Well, they're pandering to you and I. They're not pandering to the people that actually make the right decisions. So when we're sitting there saying, no, give us more free money, they're going to be like, okay, how do we do that? Because we got to get their vote. So, you got to remember that sometimes it's like, are our politicians working for our vote? Or are they working to make our country better? And at the end of the day, that's the debate we have in the political world, and that's another conversation. But regardless of what's going on there, that's where Damon can come in and say, regardless of the political world and what's going on, you've got to create that nest egg and create that ability to protect your family through whatever storm's going on, whether it's personal storms like fires and deaths in the family and things, or more global storms like people are losing their jobs because of COVID or things like either way. This is there to protect you in those things. And if nothing goes wrong, this is also to say, you know what? I'm here in my 60s now. I'm about ready to tired of doing this mess. I'm going to go sell everything, buy an RV, and see the world. Well, guess what? Now you can do that.
You can do that.
And if you're not planning, guess what? You're in your 60s and say, man, I'd love to see the world, but I can't because I got to pay for this house that I'm still, paying on.
And you're sitting in the dark eating cat food.
Exactly.
And that is not a good place to be.
Yeah. And you don't want, it's bad. When you're younger, you put through that because I'm doing this because I want to do that. But when you're older, and it's a little harder pill to swallow.
It is without a doubt. But and just like we were talking earlier, the foundational pieces, that's what you've got to put together as soon as you can. And then you eat the elephant. Every time that you can, you take another bite and you build on that structure to meet your goals, your needs. And it's just a matter of getting off high center.
And I would guess too, you probably get, especially if you find people that once they get like a game plan or a structure, they really thrive in following that. And some people do that real well. Some they're like, no, I want to forge my own way. But and there's a right path to do both that way. But you got to educate yourself on the risks, rewards, and or have the Sherpa like person, like someone like Damon, to bounce these ideas off and say, yeah, but you're opening yourself to this, and this. If we did this instead of this, you're still getting what you want to do, but you're not exposing yourself to this, and this. And that's where, so if you're a little like, I want to go wild with this, Damon would be like, I'll ride it with you, but I'm going to steer you on what, or if you know, and it really is that person and that's at the end of the day, that's kind of where you're at. I mean, yes, you get the training to do all the minutia of all it, but at the end of the day, it's almost that sounding board person. Say, look, I want to do this. Is that a smart move? And you can give them the pros and cons on if that's a smart move or not.
And that's exactly it. I mean, it's you're good at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Let me be good at what I do.
Yeah.
And realistically, who and wherever you're at, it's finding an individual that you trust.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's me or anybody else in the industry, it's finding someone that you trust, that you can sit down, that you feel that they're going to give you valid information for your situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then expanding on that, growing that situation, and your plan falls into place.
Absolutely. Yeah. You may be an expert at earning income from a job. Damon's the guy that say, okay, now that you've got that income, how can we make it work for you instead of you keeping working to make more of this?
Yep.
And that's life. That's the American dream. You work hard, you get this living. All right. How do I make sure that this living that I've accrued over 20, 30, 40 years is going to last me the next 40 years or whatever it is? And that's
and see, the onus to me is on me once I meet you
Mm-hmm.
to establish that I bring enough to the table to sit at your table of advisors.
Sure.
Because ultimately, in my mind, that's what it comes down to, is we all can't be a jack of all trades.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hate doing cement. Concrete is not my forte.
Yeah.
I can do it, but I don't like to. So
Sure.
I'd rather pay someone to do it. Well, it's the same scenario.
Mm-hmm.
You build your table of advisors, and that's what I strive to be, is to build that relationship and that trust to be able to sit down at your table.
Sure. Well, it's let's face it, life's the gamble and everything else, and so much your finances very much so are too. But it's the Kenny Rogers, the gambler song. It's going to be that way. You just got to know when to make the move. When it's to hold 'em, fold 'em, walk away, run, the whole song there. That's not a whole lot different than what we're talking about here, just in the bigger scheme of things. And it's just okay, but we don't grow up being financial experts unless you were surrounded by that stuff or someone taught you it. A lot of it's not going to just absorb onto you. I mean, some of it will, I hope, but when you get into the minutia of putting say you're looking for a tax shelter, I'm pretty sure unless you're doing this every day, you're probably not well versed on all the different options that are available to you. You may have known what your dad did 30 years ago, but things have changed a little bit from how you do. I mean, the tried and true don't, but the ways to get there, it's a little bit different than it was probably when your parents were doing this kind of stuff.
And you're spot on that one.
Yeah.
Because I was having this conversation just the other day that this world has changed immensely just over the last 20 years because of the transfer of information. I mean, previously you could have a tsunami in Japan and we wouldn't find out about it until a day or so later.
So the markets
wouldn't react to that until they saw some of the fallout from the tsunami. Then they would go, okay, now we can react. But now tsunami happens today. 30 seconds later, we know about it here, and the markets are reacting.
It's impacting the money instantaneous, and
so that has a huge impact on how you place your plan and where you put things and how you react to it.
Yeah, I could have, and I know this is not my world or anything, but when we think of the stock market and trading, of course, the image I think most Americans think of is the New York Stock Exchange floor. There's been enough movies and TV shows that put you there, and you kind of get that feeling. And the image is always the same. The guys in the coats run around. It looks like just a big cluster of screaming and hollering. It's actually very much an orchestra, but people don't realize it unless you're in there. And you're thinking, okay, 30 years ago, it looked like that, and they were finding information, hours, next day, whatever it was, and now it's literally the stock market opens and the ticker's going on the TV, and a piece of information happens, and it impacts it seconds later. So I always wonder, it's like we always had that confusing look then, like, is it 10 worse now, or is technology still make it? I'm just kind of curious, I wonder how it changed that world down there,
I don't know. I was I was supposed to have the opportunity to go to New York in general, but my plan was to go to the stock exchange last October, and that all got canceled.
COVID probably put a wrinkle on that one.
It was a New York Life trip.
Okay.
And, it was going to be their 175th anniversary blowout.
Were you going to be one of the group that got to be up where they rang the bell or the CEO up there and hang out?
We hadn't gone that far.
Okay.
But New York Life was taking the top 2020 agents for 2020 and taking them to New York for their 175th anniversary blowout.
Wine and dine them a little bit and show them a meal, good time.
And COVID kiboshed that.
Yeah. That's unfortunate because, New York, you see the movies and everything, but as far as dining goes, it's crazy expensive. But they really do have the best of everything. And I don't know how they pull it off, like bagels and stuff. They always say it's the water, but I don't, it's just like, no matter where you go, it's like, who's got the best pizza? New York. Who's got the best Chinese food? New York. Who's got the best bagels? New York. And they ain't wrong.
Really? I was looking. It was one of the bucket list things, and I wanted to go, and I thought, you know what, this is a perfect opportunity. I'm going to be able to do it on New York Life dime. Well,
didn't happen,
but it will.
Good. Yep. Good. Well, you have to share that experience with us. I'll always be curious and how that they do all that. But in the meantime, I just saw the time. So, but I'm hoping people are listening here now that we're the world's opening up again. Now's that time. Sit down, give Damon a call, and say, "Hey, let me sit down," because like Damon said at the beginning. The first part of this is he's getting to know you and getting to know your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, your current status, and then he can percolate and formulate and say, okay, you want to get here, let me give you some paths on how you can do that. And let's sit and talk and find out which ones, and that's where the conversation is going to begin. It's not almost talking numbers per se that first time. It's talking theories, concepts, and what all right, what you're coming to see me, what's your end game? Right. What are you wanting, what are you hoping from me?
And, one of the biggest topics throughout since the pandemic hit and the tailwind behind it is life insurance.
Yeah.
Because so many were struck with the reality that they either did not have it or did not have enough.
Sure.
Because, I have delivered more death claim checks in the last 8 months than I have my entire career. It's kind of crazy, though. The majority of them were not COVID related.
Really?
But people were just dying.
Well, I would say, because obviously the people that are least concerned about life insurance are people that are younger and feel, let's face it, when we're young, we're all indestructible, right?
Sure.
Death is something we don't even think, I'm 20-something strapping, I got the whole world. Yeah, exactly. COVID probably knocked that down a peg a little bit. They were like, oh, just because I'm 21 and in the prime of my health don't mean tomorrow's not guaranteed to me.
Exactly.
And so I bet there's a little of that going on, too, and just some of that.
There has been.
So if this conversation saying, you know what, time to make a difference here, time to get an opportunity to have that conversation, start planning, give Damon a call. You can call him direct, 575-623-0803. That's the office number. You can also give him a holler on his cell, 575-626-4268. And
4298.
Oh, 4298. Sorry, glasses.
Yep.
Those 6s, 8s, and 9s start even. You're watching me do this.
I was.
And, of course, you can always email if you're folks that love to do that. It's ddgraham at ft.newyorklife.com. And I think, don't you have Facebook and all that, too? If you can look up Damon Graham on Facebook, he'll be happy. Or I'm guessing in COVID world, you probably want to give him a call first or something to set up an appointment. I mean, if you happen
always best.
If you happen to stroll by the office and he's in there, he'll talk to you. But if time is a bit strained for you, call, make an appointment, and things like
Definitely.
that. But Damon's here to just and like I said, that first conversation is just a conversation. Let's sit and talk. All right, come to me, or I'm coming to you here. Where do you see yourself in 20 years? What do you want to do with this? And let's go with it.
And we and definitely, if still face-to-face is a little uncomfortable for you, we can do Zoom, we can do over the phone, all the anything that. And in fact, I even had some cases during COVID that I never even saw the person.
Because and technology in the world of digitally, electronically signing and transferring that's been a godsend. I know there's moments of you want to throw it out the window, but in the big scope of things, it's moved business along where business may have shut down had that not been available.
Yeah. It blows my mind because I'm sitting there going, I don't know if I run into my client because I've never seen them, and that it bugs me. Because I'm like, I'm a face-to-face person.
Sure.
I like to know who I am.
And
I like dig into their world, and I know because that way I can make the recommendations that are applicable to their life.
Sure.
And I'm sitting here going, I have no idea what this person looks like.
Well, if you got a couple of these clients, maybe you could do like a post-COVID reunion. And we're like, we're not here to talk finances. We're all here to just eat some pizza and chit-chat. But I just wanted to see you.
Yeah, I just want to know what you look like. So it has been interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, and it will continue. Trust me, we're not done. There's gonna be more curveballs coming. I got a feeling, but weather the storm. That's how you do it. And step one on weathering the storm is picking up the phone and giving Damon a call here. So, is there anything we missed?
No, I think we're good, Mike. I think this was a good, just kind of round table type scenario.
Sure, I'm telling you, now we're opening up and things. Now's the time to look back and assess. All right, lessons learned. What went well during COVID? What did we just fumble the football on? And let's because something's going to happen again. I mean, especially if you're 20-something, you're going to see a whole lot more in the world before you're done leaving it. Trust me, there's going to be stuff that's going to happen. It's just it's kind of funny. I'm in my pushing 50 here, and I look back and I'm like, man, I've seen a lot of stuff in this 50 years, and it goes by in a zip, man.
One of the analogies is that in a 20-year time frame in the market, are you going to see downturns? Of course you are.
Yeah,
And you'll average 4 to 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you plan and whether you know what to do during those downtimes to survive them. And it's the same way with a pandemic. It's the same way with life in general. It's just making sure that you're educated to the point that you can make the decisions that will positively impact your existence.
Yes, just like you gamers out there. Your strategy is to save the game more, so when you die, you don't have to go back as far. This is that in real life.
Yeah, true. I never thought about that one, but okay, we'll go with that.
Kind of like that in real life a little bit. It's like establishing more save points on your game there.
In life, there's very few resets.
Yeah, exactly. But at least this will get you where you don't lose everything, and you get to pick up the pieces and move forward instead of trying to keep going backwards.
Exactly.
So, well, thank you, Damon. As always, appreciate the visit. We'll see you here next time, if not sooner.
There you go.
All right,
Mike.
It's 8:30.